Without even reaching for the flowers, my mother questioned, "What is this supposed to be?" I whispered, "They're specially imported orchids. There's also something unique within." She didn't look, though. Rather, her finely manicured nails dug into the armchair as her face flushed with rage. Yes, I was aware of that. As she walked away, she spit out, "You really are a useless girl. You get here wearing that simple clothing, which is most likely the only good item you own. You can't afford anything nicer, so you drive a simple rental car, and now you're giving me flowers. And what should I do with these? In 3 days, they will pass away." The bouquet was thrown back at me by her. Everything fell onto the coffee table, sprinkling flowers all over everything. Nate and Cassie, my step-siblings, laughed behind their hands. While some attendees were uneasy, others appeared to be taking pleasure in the drama. Victor, my stepfather, continued to go through his phone as like nothing was going on. I picked up the bouquet, carefully picking up the petals that were dispersed. There was silence in the room as everyone waited to see what I would do. Even though my heart was racing, I didn't want them to know how shaken I was. "Mom, you know what's funny?" Despite the emotion swirling inside of me, I spoke steadily. "Somewhere within these flowers is." She had no knowledge of them. They had the same mindset as before. They didn't consider me a member of their own family. My thoughts turned to the day my life was irrevocably altered 10 years ago. I was dragged away on the day I graduated from high school. Mom and my father-in-law, Victor, invited me into the living room for a serious conversation just as I was taking off my cap and gown. As I stood in front of them, my pulse pounding with excitement, they sat on the couch like judges preparing to deliver a verdict. "Alexandra," Victor said in a harsh, icy tone. "You are now 22 years old. Although we've been kind, you must realize that you can't stay here indefinitely. You must get a legitimate job and begin supporting yourself." I grinned composedly, experiencing a wave of relief instead of the obvious terror they had anticipated. "I fully comprehend," I said, relishing the moment of surprise on their faces. "I'll be moving out by next week." I suppose they both thought I would be defiant and cry. Mom's mouth opened as if she were about to speak, then shut again. A single line appeared on her flawlessly lipsticked lips. "All right, good." Victor eventually succeeded. "That's very mature of you." Neither of them asked where I planned to go or how I would support myself. They were too relieved that I'd agreed so easily to risk asking questions that might complicate things. I could almost feel their eagerness to turn my bedroom into another space for their precious Cassie. Moving day arrived faster than I expected. I packed my life into 4 cardboard boxes and 2 suitcases, my fingers trembling slightly as I wrapped each item. It was surprising how little I'd accumulated over the years, almost like I'd been subconsciously preparing for this moment all along, waiting for my chance to escape. Grandma Ellie pulled up in her blue Honda at exactly 9 in the morning. I watched through my bedroom window as she parked, my stomach nodding as I half expected Mom or someone else to come see what was happening, but the house remained silent. Even though I could see some movement behind the curtains of Cassie's room, as we drove away, I watched my childhood home shrink in the side mirror until it disappeared completely. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt lighter with each mile we put between us and that house of carefully crafted pretenses, like chains falling away from my shoulders. I spent that summer working at Sunshine Cafe, serving coffee and sandwiches to regulars who always tipped well and treated me like family. The warmth in their smiles was something I'd forgotten could exist. The owner, Mrs. Peterson, even let me pick up extra shifts when I wanted to save more for college expenses. Since then, my relationship with my parents faded away completely. September came, and I boarded a plane to start my new life at Westlake University, 3 states away from everything I'd known. "This is it. My fresh start," I whispered to myself as the plane took off. The real estate and business program was challenging, but I threw myself into it completely, determination burning in my chest with every late-night study session. My roommate, Liv, became my first real friend since high school. She didn't know my whole story at first, but when she finally learned about it, she just hugged me tightly and said, their loss, girl. Their absolute loss. Mom's Instagram became my window into the life I'd left behind. There they were, the perfect family, smiling at Nate's business networking events, celebrating Cassie's gallery openings, taking vacation selfies at expensive resorts. My stomach would clench seeing their practiced poses. The captions always read like marketing copy, "So proud of our amazing entrepreneurs," or "Nothing better than quality family time." I was never mentioned, not even once. It was like I'd never existed, erased from the family narrative. I spent holidays at Grandma's house, cooking together and watching classic films from her collection. The smell of her homemade apple pie would fill the house with warmth that no luxury restaurant could match. We created our own traditions, and they meant more to me than any forced family dinner ever had. Sometimes she'd catch me scrolling through Mom's social media posts and gently take my phone away, her eyes filled with understanding. "Don't torture yourself," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "You're making your own story now, one that's real." And I was. I graduated summa cum laude, with job offers already lined up, thanks to my internships and academic performance. Liv's mentor, Diana Westbrook, ran a prestigious real estate firm, and she noticed my potential during a university property investment showcase. "We need ambitious minds like yours," she said during my interview, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Your professors speak very highly of your market analyses." I started as a junior agent, but I wasn't content to stay there. I worked weekends, built my client network meticulously, and studied market trends obsessively. Within 5 years, I'd become a top-selling agent and had enough savings for a down payment on my own luxury condo. The day I signed the mortgage papers, I stood in my empty living room, keys in hand, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and finally let myself cry. They were happy tears, tears of pride, of accomplishment, of knowing that I'd made it on my own terms. Then came the biggest surprise. Diana called me into her office one morning, about 6 years after I'd started at the company. "I've been watching your progress," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "You've consistently outperformed everyone. I want to make you a partner in our luxury properties division." My hands trembled as I opened the folder and nearly gasped at the commission structure. It was more money than I'd ever imagined making, especially at 28. I never saw the point in broadcasting my life online. Sure, I had social media accounts, but I mostly used them to share occasional photos of properties or sunset views from my condo. Grandma was the only one who knew about my sales records, my new condo, or the sleek black Audi R8 I'd bought myself as a reward. "You've earned every bit of it," she'd say proudly, her eyes glistening whenever I shared my achievements with her. Meanwhile, Nate and Cassie's social media feeds were like endless highlight reels of mediocrity. "I can't believe they still do this," I muttered to myself, scrolling through their profiles. Nate would pose next to his used BMW 3 Series with captions like, "CEO Lifestyle, Blessed, Luxury Life," while Cassie shared photos of herself at designer stores, tagging luxury brands she clearly couldn't afford without Mom and Victor's credit cards. One post particularly made me laugh. Nate standing next to his car at some local networking event, writing, "When hard work pays off, success, entrepreneur, real estate." I was reading this while sitting in my Audi R8, its engine purring like a contented cat, worth more than his annual salary at Victor's company. The leather seats still smelled new, and the dashboard gleamed in the sunlight, but I didn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. My success spoke for itself in ways Instagram filters couldn't capture. Then came the message that changed everything. It popped up on my Instagram DMs one Tuesday morning, the notification sound making my heart skip a beat. "Alexandra, it's your mother. Mother's Day is coming up next month, and I'm having a small family gathering at home. I expect you to attend and bring something appropriate. It's on Sunday at 1 p.m. sharp. Don't embarrass me by showing up empty-handed." I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold as I read the message multiple times. 3 years of minimal contact, and this was how she reached out. No, how are you? No attempt to bridge the gap, just a command to appear at her gathering with that subtle expectation of an expensive gift. I almost deleted the message right there, but something stopped me, my finger hovering over the screen. Curiosity, maybe, or the desire to see what would happen when our worlds collide. I called Diana and requested a few days off, then booked a flight to my hometown, my stomach a mix of butterflies and dread. That evening, over tea in her cozy kitchen filled with the scent of freshly baked cookies, Grandma asked the question I'd been pondering myself. "What are you planning to give her, sweetheart?" I smiled, pulling out my phone to show her the photos of a lakeside vacation property I'd recently acquired through a foreclosure deal, 3 bedrooms, a private dock, panoramic views, worth about $450,000. Grandma's eyes widened, her teacup freezing halfway to her lips. "Alex, that's too much. She doesn't deserve it after how she treated you." "Oh, I know she doesn't," I laughed, taking a sip of tea, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. "But can you imagine her face when she realizes what she's been missing all these years?" The daughter she pushed aside turned out to be more successful than she could have imagined. I want to see her expression when she realizes just how wrong she was about me. "You're a little bit devious," Grandma chuckled, shaking her head, her eyes twinkling. "I must say, I'm rather looking forward to it myself." "You can do this," I whispered to myself as I pulled up to my mother's suburban house the morning of Mom's gathering. I slipped on my Armani pantsuit, elegant in its simplicity, with a tailoring that spoke wealth without screaming it. The price tag could have bought 10 of the flashy outfits I spotted later that day. I deliberately drove my rental sedan instead of requesting an Audi from the agency, amused by how this would play into their assumptions about my life. I carried an exquisite bouquet of rare orchids and peonies, arranged by a florist who served celebrities. The delicate blooms nestled in tissue paper. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips as I walked up the familiar driveway. The house turned out to be exactly what I expected, superficially upgraded with the kind of features that impressed people who'd never seen truly high-end homes, the kind of place that had granite countertops but cheap cabinets beneath them. I'd shown properties that made this look like student housing. Mom greeted me at the door, her eyes barely flickering over me before her lip curled slightly. "Oh, Alexandra, you came. You could have dressed up a bit more for the occasion." She glanced at my understated designer outfit with disapproval. The living room was already full when I entered. Mom sat in her favorite armchair, wearing a sequined blouse that sparkled under the recessed lighting. Victor was beside her, and Nate and Cassie flanked them like royal heirs. The rest of the seats were filled with relatives I hadn't seen in years: Aunt Linda, who used to pinch my cheeks too hard, Cousin Rachel, who always bragged about her kids, and various other vague faces from my past. I took my seat at the far end of the room, watching the show unfold. Aunt Linda gave Mom a scented candle set. "It's from that exclusive boutique at the mall," she explained proudly, her voice carrying across the room. Mom cooed over it like it was diamonds. "Oh, Linda, you know exactly what I love." Rachel presented a gift card to a local spa for a day of pampering, more excited squeals from Mom. The gifts continued: a cookbook, a decorative vase, a basket of bath products. Mom treated each one like a precious treasure, making sure to emphasize how thoughtful and perfect each gift was, her eyes lighting up with each package. Then came Nate and Cassie's moment. They stood up together, grinning like they just won the lottery. "Mom," Nate said, and it still felt wrong hearing him call her that, "Cassie and I pooled our money to get you something special." Cassie pulled out her phone and showed a photo. "It's a 65-inch smart TV. We already had it delivered and mounted in your living room." Mom burst into tears, pulling them both into a tight hug, her jewelry clinking as she embraced them. "My wonderful, generous children. I can't believe you did this. You must have saved for months." Finally, all eyes turned to me. I reached forward and presented my bouquet. Mom's expression darkened immediately. "What's this supposed to be?" she asked, not even reaching to take the flowers. "They're specially imported orchids," I suggested quietly. "There's something special inside too." But she didn't look. Instead, her face turned red with anger, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the armchair. Oh, I knew it. You really are a useless girl, she spat that out with a laugh. You show up here in that plain outfit, probably the only nice thing you own, you drive some basic rental car because you can't afford anything better, and now you give me flowers? What am I supposed to do with these? They'll die in 3 days. She threw the bouquet back at me. It landed on the coffee table, scattering petals across the surface. Nate and Cassie snickered behind their hands. Some guests looked uncomfortable, others seemed to be enjoying the drama. Victor just kept scrolling through his phone as if nothing was happening. I picked up the bouquet, calmly gathering the scattered petals with careful fingers. The room had gone quiet, waiting to see what I would do next. My heart was pounding, but I refused to let them see me rattled. You know what's funny, Mom? I said, my voice steady despite the emotion churning inside me. Hidden in these flowers is the deed to a lakefront vacation property, 3 bedrooms, a private dock, panoramic views, worth about $450,000. Her face was drained of color. Cassie dropped her champagne flute with a shatter that seemed deafening in the sudden silence. That's impossible. Mom stammered, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide her shock. You can't afford something like that. You're obviously lying. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound cutting through the tension. You'd know whether I could afford it or not if you'd shown any interest in my life these past few years. But let me catch you up. Right now, I'm a partner at Westbrook Luxury Properties. I own my condo in the city outright, and that rental car you mocked. I drove it because I didn't want to leave my Audi R8 parked in this neighborhood overnight. Nate's mouth hung open, his carefully cultivated image of success crumbling before my eyes. Cassie had stopped giggling, her fingers nervously twisting her fake designer bracelet. But since you're so convinced I'm a failure, I continued, tucking the small envelope back into the bouquet, and you clearly don't want anything from me, I won't spoil your Mother's Day any further. Enjoy your TV. I hear the resolution is almost as good as the one in my home theater system. I walked out with my head high, the soft thud of the front door closing behind me, feeling like the period at the end of a long, painful sentence. I drove straight to Grandma's house, the weight on my shoulders lifting with each mile. She was waiting for me, 2 cups of tea already steaming on the coffee table, the familiar scent of caramel filling the air. I told her everything that had happened, my voice occasionally breaking. Some people never change, she sighed, shaking her head, the lamplight catching the silver in her hair. Your mother's always been more interested in appearances than reality. Even as a little girl, she cared more about how things looked than how they felt. We were still talking when my phone started ringing. An unknown number, but the flutter in my stomach told me who it was. Alexandra, sweetheart, Mom's voice dripped with honey, the contrast to her earlier tone making me sick. I don't know where she got my number. I've been thinking about what happened today. Have you? I replied coolly, my fingers tightening around the phone. Yes, and I realize now that I may have been hasty. If you're still willing to give me that property deed, I'd love to accept it. We could use this as a fresh start. I want to be part of your life again. We're family. No, I said, finally understanding something that had eluded me for years. We're not family. We're just people who share DNA. And you didn't want to restore our relationship. You just want that lake house. I hung up, my hand trembling slightly, but my resolve firm. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. After I left town, Mom called from different numbers, her cell, the house phone, even Victor's phone. When she realized I wouldn't pick up, the messages started flooding in, each notification making my stomach clench. Alex, please call me back. We need to talk about this property situation. I've been thinking about what you said about your career. Maybe you could help Nate get started in real estate. He's very good with people. Cassie's been saying she'd love to intern at a luxury property firm like yours. It would look so good on her resume. The house needs some renovations, and since you're doing so well. Each message was more transparent than the last. No apologies, No acknowledgement of the past, just an endless stream of requests and hints about my money. The desperation in her words made my skin crawl. It was like watching a hungry predator circling its prey, except what Mom had lost wasn't a meal, it was her relationship with her daughter. I read each message with a strange detachment, like I was analyzing a client's property portfolio. The tactics were almost impressive in their variety. Guilt: I'm your mother, how can you ignore me after all I've done? Flattery: you've become such a successful businesswoman. Manipulation: family should help family in times of need. And even threats: I'll tell everyone in the industry how you abandoned your poor mother. Your mother's been calling me non-stop, Grandma told me over the phone a week after I'd returned home. She showed up at my garden gate today, if you can believe it. Demanded I give her your address and information about the lake house. What did you tell her? I asked, though the warmth in my chest already told me the answer. I told her to get off my property before I called the police, she chuckled, her voice strong despite her age. You should have seen her face turn red as my tomatoes. She kept saying she had a right to know where her daughter lives and what properties you own. I reminded her that she gave up that right years ago when she chose Victor's children over you. I could picture Mom standing at Grandma's garden gate, probably wearing one of her knockoff designer outfits, trying to bully her way into getting what she wanted. It was the same pattern I'd watched my whole life, but now I could see it clearly for what it was: pure selfishness disguised as family concern. She didn't take it well. Grandma continued, started ranting about how ungrateful we both were, how she'd sacrificed everything for you. Mrs. Henderson next door was watering her roses and heard everything. When she finally realized I wasn't going to give in, she stormed off to her car, nearly backing into Mr. Peterson's mailbox. Grandma said, "But Alex, be careful," the look in her eyes, she seemed desperate. Assuring Grandma, I already blocked her on everything, phone, email, social media. Additionally, my office's security has a picture of her at the front desk in case she shows up. After we hung up, I strolled around my condo, stroking the sleek marble countertops and admiring everything I had built for myself, including the carefully chosen custom furniture, the original artwork on the walls, and the expansive view of the city skyline from my floor-to-ceiling windows. All of this was the result of my own perseverance and hard work. I reflected on Mom's communications, her unexpected interest in my life now that she was aware of my costly possessions. Ultimately, it was almost humorous in a depressing manner. She had thrown away a connection with her daughter in order to give the impression that she and Victor and his children made the ideal family, and now she was frantically trying to re-enter my life in order to seem successful and gain access to my assets. However, Mom gave me a priceless lesson: love, support, and sticking with each other through good times and bad are what define a family, not genetics or marriage licenses. With Grandma and Liv, I have that. I gave my lawyer a call the following morning and moved the lake house deed into a trust so that Grandma and I could share it. Tears filled her eyes as she attempted to deny when I informed her. "You deserve this more than she ever did," I said. "You've been more of a mother to me than she ever was." For the first time in years, I felt as like I belonged in a real home based on love rather than a house of pretense. She gave me a strong hug, her embrace warm and safe. "Don't even think about coming to your brother's engagement party." With his hands clenched at his sides, my father stood at the doorway of his office and spoke in a cracking voice. "Why?" I inquired. I was cleaning the serving tray when it fell to the ground with a clatter. My heart fell like a stone after years of attempting to gain his regard. I remained still as he returned to his desk, tears in his eyes, but not for me, his family's name, or the shame he felt from having a daughter who handled food rather than portfolios. But 3 days later, they encountered a significant issue. I didn't miss the irony. I developed my love of food as a youngster by making delicacies that delighted everyone in our family kitchen. When Dad first saw my gift, I was setting up cupcakes for a school bake sale. His beaming pride made me feel good. He said, "What you're doing is incredible," as I turned everyday things into delicacies that made my students happy. "You're creating something special here." With a spatula in hand, I looked up to see the sweetest smile I had ever seen on his face. My straightforward response, everyone deserves to enjoy beautiful food, was the first indication that something was really off. The first indication appeared during the supper for my high school graduation. It was a frightening Reynolds estate. The artwork and marble countertops were more expensive than any restaurant's annual wage. With her pearl necklace shining in the chandelier light, my mother sat rigidly at the head of the table. Despite the fact that we had talked about my culinary school applications several times, Mom said, "And what are your plans now, Olivia?" "I'm attending the Culinary Institute in autumn." "How charming. Those business meals must be prepared by someone, I guess." Squeezing his serviette, Dad did not defend me with words. His voice was tense as he inquired, "Will you be studying management? Managing a restaurant may be quite profitable. You've always been a gifted chef. Building on it, you ought to get a business management degree." I blinked, perplexed. Culinary arts are my area of interest. I adore producing meals personally. I enjoy cooking since it's a creative, hands-on activity. There was silence at the table. My gut nodded as Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Dad said later that evening, "You might want to think about being less direct about serving meals yourself. Olivia, business entrepreneurs are respected in our circles. Perhaps place more emphasis on management than waitressing." At the time, I wrote it off as a one-time compromise. I was hoping to work as a waiter in a hotel and learn cookery in order to fulfill my ambition of one day serving my own food to customers. I had no idea that it was the start of Dad's effort to change me into a person his friends and relatives could admire and who the Reynolds family could show off at their parties. For years, I attempted to be the food service employee who enjoyed producing the ideal dining experiences and the daughter my father wanted to flaunt. I continued working at Grand Meridian while I was visiting his business events. I dressed appropriately, learned which wines to suggest, and grinned when discussing vacation rentals and market trends. My father no longer recognized my culinary masterpieces and no longer thought of me as the gifted daughter who had previously taken him by surprise. He considered my cooking to be only a steady pastime. I went around my tiny flat the morning following Dad's rejection, which was a far cry from the Reynolds estate in Westmoreland Heights, where I was raised. My neighbors weren't country club members or owners of financial portfolios, they were teachers, nurses, and retail employees. I thought back to the charity event that I had gone to at my father's request 6 months prior. Catherine Whittington, a family friend, had caught me behind the appetizer table with a champagne flute in her hand. "Walter mentioned you work downtown. Which firm are you with?" Her diamond tennis bracelet caught the light as she gestured. Before I could answer, Dad appeared at my side, his hand pressing firmly against my elbow. "Olivia's in the hospitality industry. She's quite talented at event coordination." Not a lie, but not the truth either. I noticed how he'd steered the conversation away from my hands-on work, my actual passion. That night, after everyone left, I confronted him. "You made it sound like I sit behind a desk all day." "I just simplified things," he said, loosening his tie. "They wouldn't understand what you do anyway." "What's there to understand? I'm a waitress at a hotel restaurant. I'm proud of that." He sighed, that familiar crease forming between his eyebrows. "Olivia, in our circles, people expect a certain trajectory. No one serves food unless they own the restaurant." I maintained my hotel schedule despite Dad's hints that perhaps I could afford to find something more suitable now. I refused to give up the work that gives me life, the joy I feel when guests taste my food and close their eyes in delight. The power of that connection was intoxicating, magical in ways Dad's world of property values and business acquisitions could never understand. Then came the announcement that changed everything. Dad burst into my apartment one Sunday, unusually animated. "Ethan proposed to Sophia Chen," he announced proudly. She said, "Yes." I recognized the name immediately. Sophia Chen was a rising star in the legal community. Her cases are often featured in local news. "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for my brother Ethan, who has always been kinder to me than our parents. "When's the party next month?" They're planning to get engaged quickly before her big case. His eyes sparkled with an intensity one hadn't seen directed at me in years. A Chin joining the Reynolds family, your mother's thrilled. The Chin-Reynolds engagement consumed all family conversations. Sunday dinners became planning sessions about guest lists and business connections. Sophia's family wants traditional elements, Mom said one Sunday, dabbing her lips, but the networking opportunity will be incredible. I sat quietly, my stomach turning as love transformed into business. Ethan looked uncomfortable too. As the party approached, Dad's criticisms grew harsher, no longer suggestions but demands. Can't you take that week off? He asked during a rare visit. Why don't you help with the preparations instead of waiting tables? Why would I do that? Sophia's connections include judges, politicians, people who could help this family. Help with what, Dad? I have a job I love. I'm talking about a real job, Olivia. He stood up as his voice rose, something befitting a Reynolds, not serving food all day like a teenager. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt the final thread connecting us snap. Is that what you think I do, just serving food? You know what I mean, he replied. I create experiences. I make people feel welcomed. What exactly do you do, Dad, besides worrying about what others think? Our relationship fractured completely. The man who once watched me cook with wonder now couldn't look at me without disappointment. 1 week before Ethan's engagement party, I was offered the chance to cater a local film festival. Maya, our hotel's chef, had recommended me for it. It was my chance to launch my dreams. I accepted the offer immediately. When I told my father I couldn't help prepare for the engagement party because I would be busy, his face twisted in disbelief. You're choosing to serve appetizers instead of helping prepare for your brother's engagement party. What followed was the argument that ended everything, harsh words thrown like knives, years of resentment surfacing. Dad accused me of embarrassing the family by refusing to move beyond my little food service job. I accused him of valuing who he wanted me to become rather than who I was. The next morning, he called me into his office. Don't even think about coming to your brother's engagement party, he said flatly. Why? I asked, though I knew the answer. I don't want people to know you're just a waitress. The word, just, hung between us, weighted with years of disappointment. I stood in the aftermath, spatula in hand, realizing I'd spent years trying to carve away parts of myself to fit Dad's vision when I should have been serving myself first. 2 days before Ethan's party, my phone rang at 6:07 a.m. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Unfortunately, my curiosity won over my initial reluctance. Olivia, her voice was high and tight with panic, we need to speak with you. I'm listening. I kept my tone neutral. The catering company canceled their contract because of the hurricane. The replacement we found is completely inadequate. I bit back a laugh. That sounds unfortunate. It's a disaster. Their food is inedible, and guests will arrive tomorrow. Sophia's parents are flying in today. The satisfaction warming my chest was petty but real. What does this have to do with me? We need your cooking abilities. The words seemed to pain her. My abilities as what? A waitress? I emphasized the last word. Yes, and your culinary skills. I thought my profession embarrassed the family. Olivia, please, this party is important to all of us. I'm asking for your help. I have a booking for the film festival. I lied, in reality, the film festival was the following weekend. We'll compensate you generously, plus bonuses for the inconvenience. I'll think about it. I ended the call. Minutes later, my phone chimed with a voicemail from Ethan. Olivia, it's me. I know things are awful between you and Dad, but we're desperate. Sophia is threatening to postpone our engagement because the food looks like, her words, cafeteria slop. That would humiliate my parents. No caterers can help on short notice. Please, if you could help us, I'd be so grateful. This isn't about Dad, it's about Sophia, and I love her too much to let bad food ruin our day." His sincerity made me pause and think. Ethan has always been kind, defending me when Mom made cutting remarks. Unlike Dad, he loved Sophia for who she was, not what she represented. At noon, Dad called. My stomach nodded as I answered silently. "Olivia, are you there?" "I'm here." I know I have no right to ask anything. His voice was rough, but Ethan is devastated. "The food is completely inedible." "And what do you need from me?" I couldn't help my tone. "We need your cooking." The compliment felt hollow. "Why should I help you?" "You made it clear how you feel about my job." "I was wrong." His voice cracked. "I've been wrong about so many things." "Please." Silence stretched between us. "The party is tomorrow at 7, he finally said. "We need help at home in the morning." "There's one more thing," he added hesitantly. "We told everyone you're an event planner for high-end clients." The revelation still stung. An event planner, more compatible with the family image. "So you're desperate enough to acknowledge what I actually do, but only in private." How fitting. "Goodbye, Dad." After hanging up, I sat motionless at my kitchen counter. Part of me wanted to ignore their pleas, let them suffer for their snobbery, but my professional pride couldn't bear Ethan's day being ruined because of family politics. I called Maya. "Bring my cooking kit, the one with the special knives. I've got a situation." An hour later, I chose a sleek black dress, elegant yet practical for cooking. As I packed my tools, each knife sliding into its case, I felt powerful. The Reynolds family needed the real me, with my, just a waitress, hands and my embarrassing profession. Back straight, chin up, I was ready to enter the lion's den with only my culinary skills as weapons. I arrived at my parents' estate to find catering vans and chaos. "I'm here for the Chin Reynolds engagement," I told the guard who didn't recognize me. Outside the kitchen, I took a deep breath before pushing the doors open. Mom stood inside, disheveled and anxious. "Thank God," she whispered, pulling me forward. The kitchen was a disaster, containers everywhere, burned food smells, a red-faced chef arguing with staff. Dad stood by the doorway on his phone. When he saw me, relief in his eyes quickly turned to shame. He couldn't meet my gaze. "Olivia's here," Mom announced, commanding once again. "Sophia Chan?" I asked, appearing elegant despite her worry. The food samples were indeed catastrophic: overcooked meat, broken sauces, terrible presentation. "You're the chef?" she asked, hope in her eyes. "I am," I replied, setting my case down. "I'm Olivia Walters." She hesitated. "Daughter," I supplied simply. I surveyed the kitchen disaster. She nodded, giving me space to work. "The caterer said this was their emergency chef." "Clearly their standards don't exist," Sophia remarked, pointing at the food disasters. I assessed the ingredients quickly. Challenging, but not impossible. "I can fix this," I said, opening my knife roll with practiced hands. Mom watched with surprise as I arranged professional knives and tools with precise efficiency. "What were you hoping for?" I asked Sophia while examining the supplies. "Something elegant but approachable, not pretentious," she explained with animated hands. "We love comfort food with thoughtful presentation." I nodded, a menu forming in my mind. "I can create that for you." "I'll need 4 hours." "We don't have," Mom began. "4 hours, or your guests eat this," I interrupted calmly, pointing to the burned food. "Your choice." Mom fell silent. Dad shifted uncomfortably nearby. "Do what you need to," Sophia decided. "Everyone out, except, would you mind if I stay?" "Olivia, I'd like to watch you work," Mom's face showed pure indignation. Within moments, everyone else filed out as I organized the kitchen and rescued ingredients. Sophia relaxed. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for the food, but for escaping family pressure." I smiled. happy to help with both. As I worked, we talked easily. Sophia was refreshingly unpretentious. So you're the mysterious sister, she observed. Ethan praises you, but your parents avoid mentioning you. I bet they do. What did they say I do? Event planning for elite clients. She laughed. Though no one would show me your portfolio because it doesn't exist. I met her eyes. I'm a waitress at Grand Meridian. That's my job, and I'm proud of it. And they're ashamed of that. She shook her head slightly, careful not to disturb my cutting. That sounds exactly like the Reynolds family I've been getting to know. As I worked my culinary magic, Sophia shared her own journey. She'd grown up in a small immigrant community, daughter of a factory worker and a seamstress. Her path to becoming a lawyer had been paved with waitressing jobs, academic rejections, and cramped apartments shared with too many roommates. People see me now and assume I was handed this career, she said. They don't see the years of grinding before the overnight success. My heart raced with recognition. Success that comes too easily isn't appreciated. Exactly, she nodded, eyes bright. That's what connects Ethan and me. He may come from wealth, but he's designing his own path, rejecting his father's connections. He wants to earn everything himself. This revelation stunned me. During our few interactions, Ethan had seemed different from our parents. But I hadn't grasped the depth of his independence as I put the finishing touches on the main course. The kitchen doors swung open. Mom appeared, followed by two family friends who gasped audibly. Sophia, we need to. My mother's words evaporated as she absorbed the culinary display. Oh my. Sophia stood, sampling a canopy from different angles. The smile that lit up her face was genuine and warm. Olivia, this is incredible. Exactly what we wanted. She grasped my flour-dusted hands, squeezing them. Thank you. More guests filtered into the kitchen, the event planner, the photographer, business associates, all staring with undisguised amazement at the food spread. I began cleaning my station, satisfied with my creation and ready to slip away quietly. Mom approached me as I wiped down the counter. I don't know how you managed this, but thank you. Her words seemed sincere, but her expression stayed reserved, as if complimenting a waitress physically pained her. I simply nodded, putting away my knives as I headed for the service exit. Dad intercepted me in the hallway. He looked drained, his powerful businessman veneer cracked to reveal something softer beneath. Olivia, wait. His hand extended toward mine but hesitated. What you did in there was remarkable. I did my job, I replied calmly. The job you're ashamed of? He flinched. I was wrong, so wrong. I see that now. His voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe we could talk after the party. I think we could work things out now that I understand. Understand what, Dad? My voice stayed steady. How valuable your culinary skills are. The connections you could make in these circles. Sophia's friends are all influential people who need someone they can trust with their events. There it was, not an apology for dismissing my passion, but a calculation of how it could serve his agenda now that he saw its value in his world. You still don't get it, I said quietly. This isn't about connections or status. It's about respect for what I love doing. I moved past him, my chef's bag in hand, feeling oddly liberated. By saving this party, I'd somehow saved myself instead. I wandered to a quiet corner of the garden, reluctant to join the main celebration but not quite ready to leave. The aroma of roses and evening jasmine filled the air as guests moved toward the dance floor inside. Olivia. Ethan's voice startled me. He stood there in his tailored suit, happy but slightly rumpled, his tie already loosened at the collar. Shouldn't you be mingling with guests or taking photos? I asked, surprised to find him alone. They can wait for 5 minutes. He approached, hands tucked in his pockets. Sophia told me what you did, how you stepped in when we didn't deserve your help. I shrugged. Professional pride. I couldn't let everyone go hungry at your engagement party, even if I wanted to. Ethan laughed, then his expression sobered. It was more than that, and we both know it. He nodded toward a stone bench, and we sat. I need to apologize, for our family, for how they've treated you, for how Dad. His voice faded. You don't need to apologize on his behalf. Maybe not, but I understand him better than most. Ethan stared at his expensive shoes. There's something about growing up as a Reynolds that distorts your worldview. Everything becomes about appearances, connections, the right schools, the right career paths. I listened as Ethan spoke honestly about the pressure of our childhood, the subtle and obvious ways our parents had molded our perspectives. It was only when I stepped away from everything that I could see how unhealthy it all was, he admitted. Dad never allowed you that freedom. He kept you close, under his thumb, trying to force you into his vision. That doesn't excuse how he treated me, I said softly. No, it doesn't. Ethan met my gaze directly. Nothing excuses that. But I want you to know that not everyone in this family thinks that way. Sophia and I certainly don't. As we walked back toward the party, Ethan asked something that caught me by surprise. What will you do now, about you and Dad? I'm not sure yet, I answered honestly. But I know I won't make myself smaller anymore to match someone else's definition of success. The party was thriving when we returned. Guests filled the dance floor. I found a quiet spot at a table near the garden's edge, content to watch from afar. Within moments, however, I was approached by a woman with striking silver hair and elegant attire. Excuse me, she said, extending her hand. I'm Elizabeth Chin, Sophia's mother. I've been enjoying the food all evening. The flavors are extraordinary. Who prepared it? Before I could respond, another woman joined our conversation. The catering is exceptional. Are you the chef? Please tell me you're available for events in Boston. The buzz traveled quickly throughout the evening. I was approached by various guests, lawyers, executives, event planners, all asking about my cooking. I distributed the simple contact cards I'd slipped into my purse, explaining my position at the Grand Meridian while mentioning I occasionally catered private events. From across the garden, I noticed my father observing these conversations. His expression was a mixture of astonishment and opportunism. When he finally approached, champagne glasses in hand, his smile was the practiced one he used for potential investors. Seems like you're the star of the party, he said, offering me a drink. I took the champagne but held it untasted. Just connecting with potential clients. I've been reflecting, he began, lowering his voice conspiratorially, about our earlier discussion. We should really reconsider your situation. Watching you work today, seeing all these influential people respond to your talent, I can now see real opportunity here. Opportunity? I echoed the word, tasting sour for both of us. My father continued, blind to my reaction. Your culinary skills, my business network, we could reimagine your career path. Perhaps launch an exclusive catering service for elite clients, maybe even open a boutique restaurant under the Reynolds name. His words revealed everything. Even now, he couldn't simply value what I did, he needed to repackage it, elevate it, make it acceptable to his social circles. I placed the untouched champagne on a passing waiter's tray. No, thank you, Dad, I said evenly. I'm not interested in rebranding my passion to make it palatable to you.